Good evening and welcome everybody to this week's episode of the Big Bang Broadcast, your weekly marketing panorama. It's so great to have you with us again tonight. My name is Annie, this is Lisa, and we're your hosts for the night. By the way, Lisa, what are you doing? You cannot eat a studio decoration. And, well, at least we can share this, right? It's really looks delicious.
Alright. Oh, I'm so sorry for that. So, welcome to the show. By the way, is it just me or is sharing becoming really popular again?
I think you're right. I mean, there's so many things people share nowadays. There's flats, bikes, even food, the list goes on and on.
Yeah, I just think that people don't have to own things anymore. They just share or borrow what they need.
True. On my way here this morning, I was listening to this radio show and they talked about the car sharing movement. That seems to be a major trend, especially in cities where there's a lack of space.
Yeah, I also heard that. So, do you think this is just a thing of the moment, or is there an overall change in how people get from A to B?
That's an interesting question. Let's have a closer look at that.
Let's see how car sharing works. Cars are located throughout the city. Find one in the app, unlock, drive, and leave it when you're done. More and more people are using car sharing. In 2006, there were 350,000 car sharing users. This increased to 7 million in 2015. It's expected to continue to grow to 36 million in 2025. This corresponds to the number of vehicles being used for car sharing around the world. Maybe you've heard of some.
So there seems to be a change in consumer behavior. But how did this happen? I mean, we still define ourselves by what we own and purchase, right?
Yeah, that's a big question. You might want to direct that to our first expert of the night, Dr. Amy Farrell-Fowler, who is a specialist in the field of consumer behavior.
Hi, you two.
Hi.
Thank you so much for having me tonight. I have to admit, I'm a huge fan of your show. And to answer your question, there's indeed a change in consumer behavior at the moment, which is caused by a variety of factors. So first, the consumer is influenced by the norms and values he has in life. So for example, imagine there's an environmentally conscious consumer. The likelihood that he will be influenced in his purchase decisions by the value of sustainability is quite high. Also, if you have somebody who believes in the value of sharing, it is likely that he will go with the car sharing trend. And also functionality is another important factor, as the car sharing movement is really easy and affordable here.
So what you're saying is that norms and values have a strong impact on the decision-making process of customers.
Yes, but there are also other factors which have influence here. For example, attitudes and also perceived behavioral control. For example, if you buy a car, you can buy it rather than a status symbol than only as a pure necessity for individual mobility. This would then be rather a lifestyle decision than a purchase decision. And also cost, on the other hand, can shape how the customers perceive a certain product.
It's an amazing insight. So you mentioned perceived behavioral control before. Mm-hmm. Could you elaborate on this a bit more?
Of course. Perceived behavioral control means the restricted decision of a customer due to his environment. I'm sure you have realized the vast media coverage on urbanization these days. As more and more people are moving to the cities, the urban population becomes more dense. And therefore this results in a lack of space, not only for living but also for parking. So let's assume an urban customer. Our assumed customer will have to factor the space problem into his purchase decision, and it will limit his ability to own a car, as he might consider the space problem here. But also he might consider sharing instead. But this is not an entirely free choice. It is rather a reaction to the restrictions he faces. So basically, in addition, we can also say that the customer's decision to go with the car sharing trend is also dependent on the accessibility of the car sharing movement and the car sharing service.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. It's been a pleasure having you on the show tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, bye.
Wow, she made an interesting point here, didn't she?
Absolutely. I think it's incredible to see how these influences affect individual behavior. So let's now take a look at the bigger picture to find out how all this turns into a collective movement.
So for those of you who follow our show on a regular basis, you know what's coming next. Please welcome our
Theory Nerd!
Welcome back! As always, I will sum up and visualize the theoretical concepts we came across during the first half of our show. Using the three logics of selection theory of Hartmut Esser, Social phenomena can be easily explained through the aggregation of all individual actions. So at first, we have the current social situation, also called as the logic of the situation, with a focus on the macro perspective of a society. It can be influenced through changes in the environment, for example through urbanization. On micro perspective, the customer as an individual evaluates the situation and his action alternatives and will choose what's best for him. This is called logic of selection. The customer's choice to use car sharing is influenced by socialization processes such as attitudes, norms, and values, but also through perceived behavioral control. For some customers, it can be a lifestyle decision, but costs can also be an influence. Other customers may base their decision on values such as sharing, the environment, and functionality. There may be restrictions that also influence the decision of a customer. All these individual but then aggregated actions lead to a second situation, the logic of the aggregation, which is our social phenomenon car sharing.
So now we established how the trend of car sharing started. I think it's time now to take a closer look at how it will impact marketing. I mean, that's what we're here for, right?
Right. But to explore the implications on marketing, let's welcome our most favorite marketing experts, Dr. Bernadette Rostenkowski-Wolowitz and Howardine Wolowitz.
Hello, my darling. So good to see you again.
Yes, so good to see you. It's been such a long time.
I know, we wanted so badly to invite you again.
Oh, you're so sweet. And I'm so excited to chat about this topic. I think car sharing is such a major game changer, especially in marketing.
So I heard the two of you are doing some research on this topic. Are you willing to share any of your super secret findings?
Well, I wouldn't call it super secret, but we are happy to share our findings. So basically, there are three main aspects to be covered here. First of all, many of our car sharing providers are strategic business units of car makers. For instance, BMW with DriveNow or Daimler with Car2Go. So this shift in value proposition to the customer fundamentally changes the company's marketing strategy. Instead of purely selling tangible products, in our case cars, they shift towards monetizing on the service. We recognize a shift from pure sales-motivated marketing to customer-centric service marketing. Moreover, using their own sharing fleets, manufacturers let the consumer experience their cars firsthand and thereby emotionally tie them to the brand. So they make their products a central part of the communications mix. Finally, you know that emission targets are a big topic in the automotive industry. So car makers use car sharing fleets as leverage to meet the goals set by the government in Brussels. They do that by using mostly electric cars in their sharing fleets, so thereby artificially boosting e-car sales numbers.
Right. So would you argue that car manufacturers are reaching into a whole new target market by this?
Precisely. In fact, they are turning non-users into users, thereby opening up an entirely new customer segment. From my own experience, from when I was studying in Oxford, I can tell you that you don't need a car on a daily basis. It is, however, great to have the option to use one whenever you need it. The same is true for young professionals living in big cities like London. Those people wouldn't even think about buying a car, but they are definitely open to sharing one. For them, it's a convenient alternative to public transport.
But how is it different to rental car companies like Avis or Europcar?
It's all about flexibility and 24/7 availability of the cars. On an hourly basis, using a share car is cheaper than using regular rentals. Moreover, you obviously don't have the hustle of signing a contract and refueling after using. Car sharing just works way easier. You just walk to the car, you unlock it with your app, and you're good to go.
Wow, thank you so much. This has really been eye-opening. I hear we can find out more about all of this in your most current article you wrote for The Telegraph, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. It has been such a pleasure being here.
Well,
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you. Wow, time's flying. We've almost reached at the end of today's episode. So I think it's time for a little wrap-up. Please back to our lovely nerd, Sheldon.
Car sharing certainly impacts marketing in the automotive industry. Companies aren't marketing the tangible product car, but are building an integrated approach to market the service. The car itself changes from being the product of the marketing mix to becoming part of the promotional mix for the service of car sharing. From a broader marketing perspective, car sharing also helps to meet sustainability goals and therefore provides an opportunity for marketing. Finally, car sharing providers can target new customer segments that were not in the market for cars before.
Thanks, Saldonia, and thank you guys for joining us on this week's episode of the Big Bang Broadcast. So make sure to tune in next week when we're going to talk about autonomous driving and how this trend might influence car sharing. Bye! Bye!
Math, science, history, unraveling the mystery that all started with a big